The Dawnbreaker is a combat cycle boss in DC Dark Legion, and he's going to show up either on Thursday at reset or Friday at reset, depending on where you are in the world. As with all the other updates to combat cycle bosses that I've been doing over the last few weeks, I want to take a second to do a deep dive on Dawnbreaker's kit, and we'll also show you a couple of fights against Dawnbreaker that I think are using some of the best champions you can possibly use to do damage against him. This is a difficult fight. It's probably up there with the Drowned in terms of like difficulty to score points on. But if you know what you're doing, you can definitely do a decent amount of damage against the boss, getting to phase 2 and start earning some mirror cells and some other resources for your account. So let's jump into Dawnbreaker's kit. And Dawnbreaker actually has a fairly easy kit in terms of, all the other bosses. We've got a few of them like Red Death, Killer Tank, and Murder Machine, to name a couple, who have many more abilities, but Dawnbreaker is just kind of a one-trick pony. So phase 2 power up, he's going to take additional 100% additional damage from spiritual attacks, and then his one ability is called the Claw. So he's going to grab one of your champions with this claw. He's going to deal damage over time until the target is defeated or until the claw is defeated. And the claw is going to take significantly more spiritual damage as well and less physical damage. So any of your physical damage dealers, unless you have like a win condition S tier champion that can do a massive amount of damage output, probably not recommended that you use them here. He's also going to summon some additional mobs that you'll have to deal with during the claw skill. So you'll be able to do a pretty decent amount of damage when the claw is out. So keep that in mind in terms of your overall strategy. I will say typically you do need a healer for this fight because you're going to be taking a massive amount of damage, or the person getting clawed is going to. You definitely want the claw to target one of your supporter champions, because if it targets your best damage dealer, that means less damage output over the fight. If it targets your healer and your only source of, providing protection for your team, could easily ruin the fight early for you. So sometimes RNG is just going to dictate that for you. I've found the claw usually targets someone on the back line, so you can kind of play around with it and figure out, where the claw is going to be targeting based on the fight or the team that you bring to the fight. A couple of items to note: bonus point champions are going to be Sinestro and Penguin here. Penguin, probably not recommended that most players bring Penguin to the fight. Even with the bonus points, he's not going to do too much for you. If you are a fairly new player and Penguin is one of the only mythic champions that you have, certainly he could provide some usefulness here. But in my opinion, I think Sinestro is much better as the bonus point champion to be using here. Now, looking at a snippet from my guide on combat cycle DPS champions, you'll see that I recommend obviously those two bonus champions if those are the best that you've got, but also a few of the other high spiritual damage champions as well. And you'll notice that I do have Black Adam here. I think only the only legendary that I have in the combat cycle DPS guide right now. Probably will be adding a few more, or maybe putting together like a sampling of non-spender options for DPS and combat cycle. I've covered some of that in prior videos, so I don't want to touch on it too much here. But these, I think, are the best champions in terms of trying to do damage to Dawnbreaker, and the ones that you should be trying to work around. Obviously, Joker being a mainstay here for pretty much every boss, but he definitely does really well against this boss because of the spiritual damage that he can output. Looking at some of the top teams here, you can see a lot of Joker in these lineups. Some folks here are trying to use Penguin. Obviously, that is a 1 red Penguin. I'm curious how many points that one scored versus Sinestro. I'm sure most of the work was put in by Sinestro here on that team. Got another Joker here. Again, as we scroll through, I do think Legion of Doom is, a decent option to use here. A lot of physical damage on that team, though, so you got to kind of watch out for that. Imagine this, person here probably could have scored more by just doing a little bit more hyper carry to their Sinestro, but yeah. Looking through here, again, here's a Constantine team doing 285 million. You can look forward to that. They've got Sinestro in there, which makes a lot of sense. But that's kind of the overall meta for this matchup is using Joker as a hyper carry, I think, for most folks, and then Sinestro. I like to do a combination where I have Joker and Sinestro in my lineup, because if Joker gets targeted by the hand, then you can use Sinestro to break it open. Pretty much the best strategy there is having a single target damage dealer who can hurt the hand very quickly. That does help you. This is my worst scoring boss, actually. For some reason, I can end up scoring a little bit better against Drown, but those are the two hardest scoring ones, especially for me. So I was messing around with a couple of different lineups here, trying to hyper carry Joker, but I think that, typically my favorite way to do this, or my favorite approach, is the same as a lot of the other bosses. So I'm sure you'll get tired of seeing this as you've been watching through this update series. But I'm just trying to give you an insight into what my best team is and what my strategy is. And hopefully you can utilize that with your teams, even if you don't have the best champions out there. A lot of non-spinners probably going to be using a champion like Black Adam on this boss, just because some people, that's the only spiritual damage dealer that they have access to at a high level. I'm hoping that they put more spiritual damage dealers into the game, but unfortunately there is a very big spiritual damage meta, it seems like, in the game right now. So not sure if we'll see that or not anytime soon. And by the way, I am using, I believe, Robot Duplicate on my Flash. I've got the Starfire Starbolts on my Superboy, and then on Crypto I have the Super Six Strings. So kind of swapped out what you would think would go on these, and that typically does really well for me here. So you're just going to start out like any normal loop. I'm just going to keep some healing and stun going. We'll try to cycle Joker's ultimate as much as possible. Hand already came out, and it looks like it targeted our Superboy, so that's fine. And we'll just, like I said, we're going to keep trying to hyper carry Joker here and just do as much damage as possible. We'll try to get our damage over time effects on Dawnbreaker as much as we can. You can be a little bit strategic about when you use Sinestro's ultimate, because if you know that a claw is about to show up, then you can actually double. You kind of do double damage with Sinestro, and sometimes that will break the hand open, especially in the early stages. So we'll give that to, I probably could have demonstrated that for you, but we're going to use Sinestro's ult on the claw, and then we'll do the same thing with Joker here. And this is kind of a nightmare scenario because we have Crypto controlled, so this might actually end our run. No, okay, we're good. Just got to be careful there. It can get very dicey depending on how you play it out. So we've got 3, I believe, of Superboy's ults on Joker. We're going to start throwing those to Sinestro, and we'll ramp his damage up a little bit. We can go ahead and just keep cycling Joker's ultimate as much as possible, and that's going to allow us to get more damage on the board. The more you cycle his ult early on, the better you're going to be in the long term. I always try to keep everyone healed up as much as possible for a situation like this, where obviously we're about to take a ton of damage on our Superboy, and we can actually, I think it's not really necessary to do this, but just to demonstrate, use that second ultimate on Sinestro to go ahead and take the hand out, and then get our healing back up. Give another ultimate to Sinestro, and we'll just keep pushing forward. This has actually been a fairly decent run for me. So now we have 3 Superboy ults on Sinestro. We can just start randomly clicking our Superboy whenever it comes available. There's something to be said for using some of them on Crypto as well, just because the higher attack you have on your healer, the more effective their healing is going to be. So, that's definitely a strategy here that you could employ if you wanted to. We'll get some healing going with Crypto, and then we actually really don't even need to use that. We're going to do it again anyway. Only got a few seconds left, so that little bit of extra damage in. Look like about 209 million. It's about 209 million plus the additional, and that puts us at 260. So we actually ended up climbing a little bit in the ranks. I would like to have gotten it to top 10, and I might try a little bit more before reset happens. Looking at the damage meter, you can see Joker was putting in most of the work there, but even at 3 purple stars, my Sinestro didn't do too bad. I do not have Sinestro's legacy piece. I do have Joker's, and obviously I told you what the other ones were. I think Sinestro is actually using the Imp doll, but you know, that's kind of where we're at with it. Joker's legacy piece is at 0 stars. If I put a little bit more into that one, it would definitely give me a little bit better damage output. Well, that's all the time we have for this Dawnbreaker how-to guide. Hopefully you're finding these updated combat cycle boss guides helpful. I know combat cycle has kind of stagnated a little bit, but I do feel like with some of the changes they've made to the game, it makes sense to do these updated guides for you all, especially for 2026. Looking forward to hearing some of your feedback. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what your strategy is for Dawnbreaker, any tips or tricks that you have. I know there's one tip that I've heard from a few folks on this boss where if you use Superboy, you actually can avoid the hand potentially. So let me know if you know about how to use that. I've never tried to utilize it, so it will be something fun to try, and maybe I can cover that in a YouTube short down the road. If you like the video and you find these helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and for those of you who aren't aware, I do have a membership that you can join, and that membership is going to get you access to some of my videos early on. I also have a members only section in my Discord where I talk with folks and, you know, try to help them out, give them a little bit of insight into things that I might not be able to provide to the general public. So definitely another perk if you want to join. There are a few different membership levels depending on how much support you want to give, but I'll appreciate any of it. And honestly, at the end of the day, if all you do is hit the subscribe button, I'll be happy. Appreciate your time, and I hope to see you in the next video.